society have drawn of the young black man. But man is special. And Genesis lets us know how special he is because God made him in his own image and in his own likeness. Isn't it good to know that we look like our daddy? Don't you feel good when somebody said, Brother Falk, you look just like your daddy? Sister Annie, that girl look just like you. Your daughter look just like you. Dot, just like you in your image. Just like you. That's a good feeling. Know that we should look like our daddy. And we ought to strive not only to look like our daddy, but we ought to strive every day to be like our daddy. Am I right? We ought to strive to act like our daddy. You know, my daddy was a good man. My daddy was a loving man. He cared about people. I want to be just like my daddy. Every Christian ought to want to be just like their daddy. And we ought to strive every day to be like our daddy, Brother Washington. He was a good man. My big brother Christ, he died that I might have a right to the tree of life. I want to be like my brother. When I was young, growing up, I had an older brother, and I admired him because I didn't have a father growing up. So he was the only image of a leader that I saw as a male, and I wanted to follow him around. I wanted to be like him because I was young at the time. So we ought to be like children. We ought to be like children wanting to be like their big brother or wanting to be like their daddy. We not only strive to look like our daddy, we ought to strive to act like our daddy. I told you about the young girl I saw on TV, probably about 5 or 6 years old. Her mom was getting dressed for something, probably church, and you saw the girl standing by mom. Mom putting on makeup and all this stuff. She got on mom's dress, got on mom high heels. Why do you think she's doing all that, Sister Annie? Why is that little girl doing that? She's only 5, 6 years old. She want to be like, to her mom is the beautiful person she ever seen. She wants to be like her mama. She wants to be like her mom. And I told you the story of the Marlboro commercial that came on some 30 or 40 years ago about the man that was walking with a little 5-year-old boy. And everything that man did, that little 5-year-old boy imitated him. And just so happened in the cool of the day, he sat down by a tree and took out that package of Marlboro cigarette and lit it up. And when he lit it up, he set it down by the little boy. The little boy looked at the Marlboro cigarette packet, picked it up, and he looked up at his daddy. What do you think was going on in that little boy's mind? Daddy's smoking a cigarette. As the commercial went on, everything you saw that daddy did, that little boy did. Daddy put his hand behind his back and walked. The little boy done the same thing. Daddy picked up a rock and threw it across the water. We used to do it all the time when we were kids, so we didn't. Little boy done the same thing. Daddy sat down by the tree, crossed his leg, put his hand behind his head, and lay back. Little boy done everything that daddy did till he got to that cigarette. Daddy took it out, lit it up, set it down by the little boy. Boy picked it up, look at his daddy. You can imagine what's going on in that boy's mind. And finally, the commercial said, think about it. The lesson the commercial was telling us that everything that child see you do, he wants to be like you. So that tells us that we have to be careful what we do around our children and what we say when they're young. I got some kids that come to my Boys and Girls Center, and they have some of the best, now let me change that word, they have the most highest vocabulary that I've ever heard. You know what I mean, Brother Charlie, when I said a high vocabulary? Them children can curse worse than a grown-up. And you ask yourself, where is this little child, first and second grade, I'm talking about first, second, kindergarten, where are they learning this from? What do you think they're getting it from? Come on, will you? Hello? And one little boy went home, and I guess he had said something, and his mom called and said, my boy is talking about some stuff, and I heard on the phone, and she said, I know he didn't learn it at home. It was about sexual education. And he ain't no more than probably about 6 or 7 years old. He must have learned it at the Boys and Girls when I'm sitting there listening to the phone call, because my boss got it on speaker. She's saying that this way he learned it from. No, he knew it before he got there. But we didn't want to offend her. But I'm just showing you how parents felt that way. And we're saying, where are these kids at that age getting this kind of language from? They're hearing it from somebody. Somebody's telling them this stuff. They're cursing. They're using profanity. And you're looking at them saying, there's no way this little kid should know this kind of language. So he's hearing it from somewhere. So you got to be careful what you say and what you do when you're around these little kids, because their brain is receptive to learn. They don't know any better. That's why we're the parents. We have to say, you can't do that. You can't use that kind of language. I teach the young boys to respect the little girls. You know, when I line them up for feeding and getting snacks, you know what I tell them? Girls up front. Why do you think I tell the little girls go? They don't more than kindergarten first. Why do you think I put the little girls up front? What do you think I'm doing, Sister Annie? Why do you think I put the girls up front? Yeah, but why do I line the girls up first when that's what I'm teaching them. They only kindergarten, first grade. They don't know. They get a little mad. No, I want all my girls up front. I'm teaching them at a young age to respect the little girls. I taught my boys that when my boys were little, I wouldn't let them fight girls. My little boy, when he was about 5 or 6, got in a fight with a little girl at a daycare. And when I come home, and I'm seeing the daycare lady and another lady there, and I don't, I'm teasing. I got to work. I don't know what's going on. I said, now, y'all not going to double team my wife now, but I'm just teasing. I didn't know that the situation was serious. So after they left, I came out and said, baby, what was going on? I saw the babysitter here, and I saw this other lady here, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. She said, what happened was, she said her little girl got pushed down. They were about 5 years old at the daycare center by my little boy. And I said, okay. I said, well, I didn't know this. And I said, because we don't let our boys fight little girls. So after that incident, she invited my son to her little daughter's party. And they became good friends. But I'm just showing you, but at the time she was angry. She didn't know my wife, because I knew her practically all her life, but my wife knew him, because we hadn't been too long. We had been married probably about 5 years, 6 years after when Jay was 5. And this lady was babysitting, and that was Miss Ghost's sister, Miss Walker, the one that passed away. That was Tisha's mom. She was babysitting my boy. She had him ever since they were 6 weeks old. So I called her their godmother. But I didn't know at the time it was serious. They became the best of friends, because she realized that these were kids. But the parents were reacting. Even though these ain't no 5 years old kids, the parents were reacting, taking it serious. So she came over to my wife's house to confront her about what had happened at the daycare center. But they resolved it, and the babysitter finally told her, said, look, I've been keeping Miss Halliburton children since they were 6 weeks old. Because I think after like 6 weeks, my wife went back to work, and so she became the babysitter for J.J. and Jonathan from the time they were babies. And the lady told her, she said, I don't have no trouble with her paying me. She paid me on time, so I'm not going to let him go. That, believe it or not, that lady, little girl, and my kids became the best of friends, because they were able to sit down and talk like simple adults. But how many times have you seen parents go to war because little 4-year-old and 5-year-old kids get into it? These are kids. Didn't Solomon said foolishness is bound in the heart of a child? I don't get excited when I see those kids at the Boys and Girls Club doing foolish stuff. That's their nature. It's the nature of a child, Brother Falk, to do silly things. But what is our nature? To teach them that is wrong. You have to start training them. You can't do that, son. You can't fight I will not let those boys fight the little girl. I call them all the time. I say, wouldn't fight. Come here. Why are you picking on my girl? Well, she pushed me, Mutap. If she pushed you, come see me. Do not fight my girl. I'm teaching them something. Come on, Sister William. Hello? You know, a lot of homes, the father and mother fight right in front of the children. Instead of sitting the children in the room or outside to play, they argue, they fuss and fight right in front of the child. That child is learning. And they don't understand that's against the law. You can be charged with child abuse, okay? So we have to start training our children. Okay, so God said, let us make man our own image, our own likeness, and the likeness of man, God created he man, male and female. So we can boast that I'm made in the image of God. I look like my daddy. And I ought to strive to be like him every day. Okay. Now let's go to the lesson. Ecclesiastes 7:29. Make him upright. You can't beat God in invention. Many have tried. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 7, verse 29. Who I gave that to? Okay, come on. Now, read that again now. Now, listen to what Solomon's saying. God has made man upright. God made him right. He may have gotten wrong, but when God made him, he was right, because God said, it is good what we have made. Did he? God don't make no junk. God make perfect stuff. So when God made man, he was right. Come on. They have done what? But they changed their own invention. But when God made him, he was perfect. God said it is good. what we have made. Because God don't make no junk, do we? So when God made us, we were perfect. Okay? Many have tried to make men like God, but they failed. They've never been successful. So God doesn't make no junk. We are blessed, and we are highly favored. We say it all the time, don't we? We're the only people that's blessed and highly favored. Christian Church of Christ. Nobody else is. But we see the world wear that sign all the time, don't we? We are blessed and highly favored. Church of Christ, remember, the only one can say that. We are blessed, and believe me, we are highly favored. Okay? So keep that in mind. That ought to make you feel special, that you are special, that you're important. No matter how people try to degrade us or devalue our worth, Brother Falk, we are somebody in the eyesight of God. He says we are like Peter said we are like royalty, royal priesthood, a chosen generation. I'm glad God chose me from the foundation of earth. This is where we get that word predestination. Do you not know God chose you a long time ago? He saw you here, Brother Falk, before you were ever born. And that's what Elijah said. Jeremiah said. He said, before I was even formed in the womb, God had chose me because he knows everything. Okay. Man, I got here where number 14 says man can make a spaceship, a submarine, a train, an airplane, a race car, 200 miles an hour, but he can't make a man. No matter what invention he can make, he have never been able to master God's invention. If man could ever make a man, and we've seen this on movies, Frankenstein, all that stuff, he still have a problem, don't he? If he could make a man, he would make history, but he can't do it. And believe me, it ain't because he haven't tried. Okay. Let's go to Psalms, number 15. So who I gave Psalms 8, 4, 9 to? Okay, come on. Not to show you that man is so special, the angel asked the question. What question did the angel ask? He asked God, what is man? He's astonished. That what now? That you, God, what is man? That you are so concerned about him. This is the angel talking. What is man? He's asking the question. We are astonished even by the angels. God, the angels cannot understand man in a sense and God relationship. Man is something that God loved. John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. He gave all he had. He only had one. And his love for man was so great until he gave him for us. Am I right, Brother Falk? Come on. So the angel asked, what is man that thou art so mindful of him? Come on. What is the Son of Man that you visited him? Come on. Now the angel looked at Christ and said, you've made him a little lower. You made him a little lower than the angel because you made him flesh. Come on. But you've crowned him with glory and honor. Now, you made man to have dominion over the works of your hand. You gave him power. You gave him authority. Angels are astonished. Come on. Listen now. So man is special. He's astonishing even to the angel. What is man that thou art so mindful of him? He ain't nothing. But God loves him. He's something because God loves him. And when God loves you, bro, you are special. You are special to be loved by God. Doesn't it feel special when you know that you are loved by people? That you are loved by your parents, Sister William? You're loved by your mother. You're loved by your father. That makes that child feel special. Come on. Say it again now. What verse is that? Come on. I thought you had finished. Uh-huh. Listen now. Whatever come through the sea, God put man over it. Oh, Lord. The angel said, how excellent is God's name. He's praising God. How excellent is your name. And all the earth. How excellent is God's name. You heard that song about, I love to call his name? Because his name is excellent, it's special, okay? It's special. Okay, so man is special. Okay, and I had Genesis 1:20, but we all read that. Just tells us about God making man in his own image. And the next one is number 16, where it says, never depreciate yourself. Don't let other people put you down. Sometimes we have that syndrome that I ain't nobody, I'm not worth nothing. We get that sometime. We call it breakdown, but we get that. But don't ever let other people depreciate. Don't ever let other people define you. Don't ever let other people tell you who you are. Know that you are a child of God. Know that you're somebody, because the world will make you. They will put you down, Brother Falk. They'll make you feel that you know. Am I right? They'll make you. Y'all been picked on in school. You little kids, will you? Pick on you because you didn't. You had raggedy shoes. I remember that being a kid. You brought bag lunch to work and they were greasy because that's all our parents had. And the rest of the kids were eating good food and buying their food, but you couldn't afford it. You ever had that feel? I had it as a child, where other kids laughed and made fun of you because you didn't have the kind of clothes they had on, Brother Falk. Kids look like me cruel, and I deal with this at the Boys and Girls Club. And we tell them, we taught them a class on bullying. And I told them, I said, do you realize that bullying is against the law? Do you know how many kids have committed, I taught a class on that. You know how many kids have committed suicide in the last 2 or 3 years because they were being bullied? And they reported it to the teachers, and the teachers did nothing about it? I mean, I'm talking about 15 and 16-year-old kids on down committed suicide because they were picked on, because they were bullied. So we train those little kids right now, bullying is against the law. So I asked them a question. I said, now, who should you tell that you're being bullied? First of all, you need to tell your teacher. If the teacher doesn't do anything about it, you need to tell the principal. If the principal don't do anything about it, you tell the officer that's there. He's there for a reason. And then if he doesn't do anything about it, who do you think the last person you ought to tell? You need to tell, well, you're at school. Your parents are not there. So when your parents are not there, you go to the teacher first. You go to the truant officer. He's there for a reason. If he doesn't do anything, you go to the principal. And if those 3 people don't do anything, who you think next you ought to tell? You ought to tell your parents. You know, I've had to deal with this when my niece was in school. You tell your parents, and you let them know that you're being bullied, because that's the only way you're going to correct it. And I told them, I said, do you not know that bullying is against the law? Do you not know that if this can be proven that you bullied this child and this child committed suicide, that your parents can be held accountable? They didn't know. They were shocked. Yes, your parents can be held accountable because you're underage. And you bullied this child to the point that this child did something crazy, committed suicide. You can't bring that child back when he's dead. So I get in their mind right now. It's wrong. Don't learn to pick on other kids. I used to be picked on when I was a kid. Come on, Sister William. Oh, I was picked on. Yeah. Yep. When I was a little boy, we used to ride a big truck to a place called, Jenny remembered, Standback Bottom. It was a cotton field where we had to chop cotton. We started that morning, and when it was time to quit, those fields were so long, we only had got halfway back. Remember, Sister William? Standback Bottom, never forget it. I mean, it was one of the longest row of cotton. Well, we all rode on the back of a truck, boys and girls. And I was young at the time. I think I was about 12 or 13. My sister was like a few years older than me. But she was quiet. And this big guy was picking on my sister. And I can remember, even as a kid, getting between this big guy, he began to beat me to death, and my sister, because I loved her. And I didn't want him picking on her. He kept picking on her. I kept telling him, leave my sister alone. You know, we'd officially become our sister. We were fighting a heartbeat. But I remember this. And I'm talking about something that probably happened over 50 years ago. You see how fresh this stuff is still in your mind as a child? A kid remember that stuff, that he's being bullied, from the age of 6 and 7. They remember that they were picked on, they were bullied. So I tell these kids, don't do this, because it can have a negative effect on that child. Don't learn to bully people. Don't let people know that you're being bullied and being picked on. Okay? Okay. So never allow others to define you. Never allow others to depreciate your value. Know that you are somebody. I'm my own worst critic. How many times we criticize ourselves, don't we? So we're our own worst critic. We tell ourselves that we're nobody. We're not gonna. And they should tell us that when we were kids. You know, especially being in a white school. You know, a lot of times they would put us down and tell us that we're not going to amount to nothing. I can remember being in high school, going to my counselor. I think it was close to my senior year, and the statements that I got from many of those counselors that you're not college material. My brother Greg Wade went through that. He went to his counseling his senior year, and they were telling him that because of his wheelchair condition that, and Prophet Charlie remember this, Greg probably told me about it, they told him that you need to be with your own kind, because he was a wheelchair all his life. And he said, they told him that you'll never be able to cope on the college level. Do you realize that when Greg died, he had a master's degree? He had been in a wheelchair all his life. He had a twin. His twin died. He was told by the doctors that he would not live to pass his 18th birthday. Now think about it, as a child, he's being told this. And this was in his mind. He was in his 60s when he died. But he lived thinking that when I turn 18, because of what they had told him, I'm going to die. That's something to put on a child. But they were not God. They didn't know what God's plan was for Greg. And many of the teachers and counselors told him that he would never be able to cope on the college level. He died with a master's degree. And he came back and showed many of those teachers, you told me I didn't make it. Here's my degree. How do you think they felt? Because sometimes we've had this in the past. People, and I tell people all this, I'm counseling with two young girls that are like my daughters to me. And they're adults now. And this before they became adults, and before one of them finished college. One of them just graduated with a bachelor's degree. But her family and other people had told them, and she told me this, so my family told us that we'll never be nobody. This girl just finished up with a bachelor's degree at Central Florida University. But think about her. Now, this is coming from not strange to her family. She suggested, and told me this just last year, our family told us that we would never amount to nothing. This girl just graduated from Central Florida University with a bachelor's degree and got a good job and driving a brand new car. I never owned one. And I've worked all my life. I'm just showing you how cruel people can be, even family members. She didn't get this from strangers. She got it from family members. But she didn't allow this to stop her. She went on and proved them wrong. Greg was the same way. He said the only thing they negativism did was make me strive harder to be somebody. So we should use that negative stuff that people tell us to prove them wrong. He proved them wrong. Let's go to Romans 7, verse 24 and 25. Remember that we can be our own worst critic. Who has Romans 7, 24 and 25? Never depreciate yourself. Never depreciate your value. And don't allow others to depreciate you. Know that you're somebody. Who has it? Come on. Romans 7. Did I skip someone? No, Brother Falk got his 15. You guys. Huh? You got Philippians? Wait. No, you after him. He go before you. Philippians is number 20. He has number 16. I may just gave you a scripture different, but he got the next number 16.
Oh, wretched man that I am.
Now, remember I told you that we are our own worst enemy? We are our own worst critic? What is Paul saying? Oh, wretched man that I am. Paul has just taken a look in the mirror at himself. And when he looked at himself, he said, oh, wretched man that I am. I look bad before. You ever looked in the mirror and didn't like what you saw, child? You don't look too good. Come on. You were sick at the time, and the doctor said, you don't look good. So Paul said, now, Paul, ain't nobody else criticizing Paul. Paul is criticizing himself, but he's doing it for a reason. Oh, wretched man that I am. He's taking a look inward. He's not looking at his outer appearance now. He's looking at the inner man. Oh, wretched man that I am. Read now. Who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Listen now. I thank God through Jesus Christ.
So then, that with the mind I myself serve the law.
Now, with the mind, he said, I serve the law. He's talking about sin. Come on.
With the flesh,
But with the flesh,
the law of sin.
the law of sin. In my flesh, he said, I serve sin. Come on.
That's it.
Okay, that's both verse. 20, 21. Read another. Is there another in there? Wait, let me go there. There's something missing in there. And I'll explain it to you in a few minutes. Let me go to Romans, because there's something in there. Okay? I told you we're on verse. Okay, let's go to Romans. Again, Romans 7, verse 24. Okay, let's see what he says now. Okay. Okay, let me go back up, but that's why I didn't go back up. Okay, let's go back up. Okay, okay, let's go back up to verse 15 and get a better understanding. Verse 14. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal. Listen what it says. Sold under sin. Listen what it says now. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I. Not. Watch this now. What I hate, that do I. What do you think Paul was saying, Brother Falk? Let me read a little more. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Okay? Watch verse 17. Now then, it is no more I that doeth it, but sin that dwelleth in me. What do you think Paul is saying, Brother Paul? Then you'll understand the lesson. So what are you saying? Let me read a little more to help you understand. For I know you know it. For I know that in me, I remember we're on our worst critic, but this is good what Paul's saying. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. Watch this now. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not. For the good that I would do not, for the good that I would, I do not. Watch this now. But the evil which I would not, that I do. What do you think he's saying? Come on, Brother Falk. I know you understand the lesson. Right? Uh-huh. Hello? Uh-huh. Okay, let me read this one more verse. You got it. Look at 21 now. Listen at it. I find then a law. Now, Paul is taking a look inward, that when I would do good. Watch this now. For I find then a law, that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But I see another law. Now you understand what he's saying. In my memory, warring against the law of my mind, my spirit. Watch this now. I know you got it now. But I see another law in my memory, warring against the law of my mind. There are two laws, spiritual and physical. For I see another law in my memory, in my mind, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my memory. Come on, Sister William. All right, come on.
But sin is always around.
All right.
And though I know I'm supposed to do right,
Come on, sis. You got it.
they're always sinning.
Do you understand the lesson now? I have a desire to do good. But come on.
And then another way is too, because if you're a Christian and stuff like that, you're supposed to be unchanged.
Right?
You have to put off that old man.
Yes, I'm looking for my glass. In fact, I just read this. In fact, it's in there.
You're supposed to be a new man.
Right.
But you're still clinging on to the old man.
All right, that's it. I got to put the old man in there. And I read it. It's in there. Let me go back over this. Look at verse 22. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. He gave you the answer right there. Come on.
But I was going to say what Brother Washington said.
Yep.
Although you are a Christian,
Mhm.
sin is still there.
The desire to do wrong is still there, but if I submit to the law of Christ, I'm not going to do it. That's what he's saying in verse 22. Read verse 22 again. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. That's the answer. Paul said, oh, wretched man. He's looking inside, and he says, when I really look at myself, oh, wretched, all of our righteousness, the Bible said, is like filthy rags in the eyes of God. Oh, wretched man that I am. Paul saw himself as a wretched individual. But he went on to say, but who shall deliver me from this body of death? What happened back there, when a man committed murder, many times they said that they would chain him to that dead man. And he had to carry that dead man around until he dropped dead. That's what Paul was looking at. Now picture a live man being chained to the man he killed, Charlie. And everywhere you go, you got to carry that dead man till you drop dead. Now you see what Paul is saying? Who shall deliver me from this dead man? Somebody got to deliver me. Who delivered him, Charlie? I need my glasses. Okay, that's what he's saying. Now you understand the lesson. Come on. Of sin. I'm sin. No, law of sin. He's talking about the law of sin. There are two different laws that we serve. We serve a spiritual law and we serve a physical law. So if I submit to the spiritual law, I will not submit to the physical law. Let's go to, what is it? Is it Galatians? Go to Galatians, I think it's 5:20. Go to Galatians 5:20. It'll give me a little bit of understanding of what he's saying. I think it's 5:20. Let me see, 5:20. Okay, 5:20. Wait a minute. No, when you get to it, it's going to say, I am crucified with Christ. It's in Galatians, I think it's, might be 3:20 or 2:20, but it says, I am crucified. Go to Galatians 2. Go to Galatians 2:18 through 20, and you'll get a better understanding of it. Who has it? No, I never. That's the one to help us out with this lesson. Go to Galatians 2:18 through 20. Read it now. Now listen to what Paul says. For if I build again, if I build again the thing which I destroyed, Paul talking about sin. I put that old man to death. But he said, if I build again the thing which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. Read on. For through the law, I'm dead to the law. Come on. That I might live unto God. Come on. I died to sin. I put that old man to death. I've died to sin that I might live. Come on. Verse 20 going to bring it out. That word crucified means I have put that old man to death, that past life. When you go down that water baptism and come up, you put that old man to death. That old man, that old body of sin. I'm not the same man that I used to be. I put that old man to death. I am crucified with Christ. When he died on that cross, I died with him. Come on. Even though I'm dead, I'm still alive. That's strange to me. I'm crucified with Christ. I put that old man to death. Nevertheless, I live. Read now. Yet it's not me that's living. But remember I told you we got to strive to be like our big brother? But it's Christ, Paul said, when I obey the gospel, he's living in me. That's why I'm not the same man I used to be, Brother Washington, because Christ lives in me. I had to put that old man to death first because he will try to revive himself every day. So we have to put him to death with the blows of self-denial. Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him first do what? Deny himself. Take up his cross and follow me. So now that I put that old man to death, I'm crucified with Christ, but yet I'm alive. But it's not me that you see that's living. It's Christ living in me. Come on. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live. I live by the faith of the Son. I'm not that same man you used to know. I'm a different man. Come on. Who loved me and gave himself for me. Brother Keever was teaching a lesson one night. He said this man used to beat his wife and all that stuff, and she put him out. And after a few months, he went to the church and obeyed the gospel. And he came back by our house, and he knocked on the door. She went to the door. She said, "What do you want?" She said, I don't want to see you because you beat me and all that stuff. He said, "No, I'm not that man. I'm another man." She didn't understand what he was talking about. He had obeyed the gospel. He said, "I'm not that man. I'm a new man. I'm a new creature." She didn't understand that. But he had obeyed the gospel. But she saw him as that same man that used to beat her and all that stuff. He said, "No, I'm a new man." That's what it means to be in Christ. I'm a new man. I'm not that same man. No matter what the world say we used to do when we obey the gospel, we're not that same man. If any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Am I right? A new creation. So he's not that same man. He's another man. That's what Paul is saying in this lesson. Okay? So never allow people to depreciate ourselves. Okay? Let me go back to Romans, and hopefully you got a better understanding of Romans 7:24 now that we've gone through that lesson. Let me go back over it. Okay? He said, but sin, 24, look at 24. Okay. He said now, let me read it again. When Paul said, "I'm old wretched man that I am," he saw himself as that simple man. But who shall deliver me from the body of death? Okay? He said, "O wretched man that I am," verse 24, "who shall deliver me from this body of death?" You understand what he's talking about? I thank God, here's the answer, that through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin. Now you get the picture. I don't serve that old law anymore because now, Brother Falk, I'm a new creature. I have put that old man to death. No matter what the world saw of me before I obeyed the gospel, I'm a new man. I'm a new creature. The wife didn't understand that, but the husband did. He understood the lesson. So that's what Paul is saying in Romans. We are new creatures now. But when Paul really looked at himself, he said, without Christ, man, I'm wretched. I'm nobody. But thank God, he said, through Christ, I serve the law of Christ. So we are new creatures now. Okay, we got to go. Let me see what else I had. Okay, go to 17 says, we tell ourselves that I'm talking about criticizing ourselves. We tell ourselves that we're nobody, that we won't, that others won't miss us. They don't need me. They won't like me. I am alone. We're never alone. Sometimes we tell ourselves that. Never allow people to tell you what you cannot do. Example, I told you about Brother Greg, lived to be 66 years old and I knew him for 56 years. I got him. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to success is more important than one thing. Okay? Okay, now I come to Sister William. Verse number 20. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Go to Philippians. You got Philippians 4:11 and 13? Come on. Paul said, not that I speak, I want to get to that. Not that I speak in respect of want. I really don't need nothing. I really don't need, let me get to that. I really don't need nothing. Philippians 4 and verse 11. Okay, read it again now. Not that I speak in respect of want. See, Paul said, I really don't need nothing. Why don't you need nothing, Paul? Because I've learned. I've learned that whatever state that I'm in, come on, I've learned to be content. You know, not having enough doesn't bother me, Brother Charlie, because I've learned from Christ how to be content. I've learned from Christ how to be content with what he's already given me. Greed sometimes can be our worst enemy. Am I right? we have to learn as Christians that we're already blessed. But you know, we spend so much time asking God for other stuff, and He's already blessed us. So we haven't learned to appreciate, Sister Annie, what we already have. Have you seen people like that? Come on, Brother Falk. Yes. He had a job. Paul had his own business. He made 10. So that's why he could tell the church, I robbed of the churches taking ways that I might do you service. Paul didn't make them churches pay for him to glorify himself. But when they gave Paul gave that same money to other churches to help them. He wasn't after money. Money was not his goal as a minister. This is where Brother Sipes gets that from. Money was not Paul's goal, even though the scripture tells him that he had a right to be supported by the church. Paul said, I've used none of this stuff. He said, I didn't do all things for the elect's sake. And then he told the church, he said, I didn't do this because I didn't want to be burdensome to you, even though I have a right. For God has ordained, Brother Falk, that they that preach the gospel should live with the gospel. It is the responsibility of the church, and I drive that home to the church. It is our responsibility to support the minister and his family. That's our responsibility. He hasn't used that because he came here out of love for the church. And we appreciate Brother Sipes, even though many times you probably think we don't, because you're not going to find too many ministers that going to come here and work for $200 and $400 a week. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. That doesn't happen. Am I right, Brother Falk? It doesn't happen. The average minister's salary is $1,000 and up. You know what I mean? But I'm letting you know that Paul was the kind of minister that loved the church. He didn't love money. He had his own business. He wasn't about money. He was about Christ. Okay? Paul was so well educated, he sat at the feet of Gamaliel. And history says that, and that was that great law teacher. History says that after his death, he was to make Paul his successor. But if you read the Bible, Paul said, I count all things but loss that I might win Christ. Paul didn't want nothing to stand between him and his God. So that's what he's saying to the church, okay? Okay, so we're never alone. What am I reading? I'm reading Philippians 4, 11 and 13. Okay, 11. Okay, he said, not that I speak in respect of want, for I've learned in whatever state I am. Paul learned to be content. He wasn't after money, he wasn't greedy. He learned to be content. I might not have nothing, but there's nothing better than contentment. The Bible talks about people that's hungry after greed. Paul said they pierced them. He said, what did he say? I can't remember how he put it, but he's talking about people that love money. For the love of money is the root of all evil. For afterward, when they come after, they pierce themselves through with many sorrows. You ever seen a person greedy after money, trying to get everything? And sometimes it costs them everything. They got everything, but they lost everything. Okay? For I know, come on, Sister William, I'm taking your verse. Paul said, I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere in all things, I'm instructed, but to be full and to be hungry. I'm hungry, but I'm full. I know how to abound, and I know how to suffer. God have taught me this. I know how to be in want. Now, now he's going to tell you, how do you know how to do this, Paul? Read verse 13. Add that to your lesson. I can do all things. There is nothing I can't do, Brother Charlie. I might be as broke come, but you know I'm content. I may not live in a mansion. I may not be able to afford a Cadillac. but I've learned, but I'm just picking on Brother Charlie. But I've learned how to be content. I hope someday to have one. May have to get a loan, Brother Charlie, but I hope someday to have a Cadillac. Okay? He said, the reason I've learned this, because I can do all things through Christ that strengthened me. I know how to be content. I can be in the poorhouse. I can be sleeping in my car. Now, come on. That's how I know how to do it. Church, do you not know we brought nothing into this world? You ever seen a U-Haul behind a hearse? A story was told of a young man that came home, and his mother was burying his father. And they had been married for over 20-some years. And he came to the funeral, because I guess the funeral perhaps had started. The preacher was telling me this story. And he came there, and he saw his mama up at the coffin, and he didn't know what she was doing. But lo and behold, he saw her putting money in the coffin. Being the curious young man that he was, he inquired, Mama, what are you doing? She said, I've been married to this man for over 20 and 30 years, and he took good care of me. But he had a request before he died. She said, well, Mama, what was Dad's request? You know, I've been gone. What was his request? She said, Dad told me to put $100,000 in his coffin when they bury him. It's okay. I don't have a problem with that, Mom. But let me make a suggestion. She said, well, okay, what's your suggestion? Why don't you take the money out of the coffin, put it in the bank, and write Daddy a check? And when Daddy get to the other side, let him cash it. That boy was wise. What was the saying? What good was that money going to do Dad in the grave? It's not going, that money going to do him about as much good as that check. So he said, just put the money in the bank, write Daddy a check, and when Daddy get to the other side, let him cash it. That was a lesson in that. Let's try to finish this up. But those are lessons. So Paul said, even though I may not have nothing, I may be in the poor house, I may not live in the best house and drive the nicest car. He said, but I learned how to be content. We have to learn to be content, people. Nothing gets us in trouble worse than greed. You ever seen ministers full of greed? Man, I've seen ministers destroy themselves, had to leave congregations because of greed. Because I read a few years ago where they arrested a minister in Lake Placid. You know, he had stole over $200,000 from that church. I got an article right now. He had stole over $200,000 from the church. A minister. You said, no, that, yes, it does. Happen all the time. You remember Creflo Dollar? Remember when they gave him that $6 million? Somehow it disappeared. So I don't pick on Jeff Rowe, but somehow it disappeared. He said the Lord told him to put it in a market account. I think he put it in his account. You remember, some of you don't remember it, but some of you remember it. You remember Mr. Billy Graham, my favorite preacher? You remember he got on TV and he said that the Lord told him that unless he get $10 million in a few months, he would die. Do you know some fool bailed him out? Because of the way he goes, the way. As a kid, I grew up watching Billy Graham because I didn't know no better, know about Church of Christ. And I thought he was a great preacher because he always spoke to the world, you know, and you would see thousands of people coming to him. So I grew to admire him before I learned the truth. But he made a boast one day and said that God told him that unless he come up with $10 million, he would die in a few months. And I'm sitting there watching, see what's going to happen. Say some fool bailed him out. I said, Lord have mercy. But these preachers make these boasts. But greed can destroy us, and sometimes it happens with the minister, and we can go on and on where men have misused, and Brother Falk had witnessed this stuff right where he was from, have misused the Lord, have misused the church, have misused, and I tell members, don't worry about the money when you give it, because if the brothers don't handle it right, they got to deal with God anyway. Am I right, Brother Falk? They got to deal with God. They got to stand before God. So don't worry about I don't worry about my money when I give it. I give my wife my collection every Thursday. She got it Thursday. When I got home, I retch her the money I'm going to give her, and I retch her my $800 to give Brother Charlie. I don't ask her if she get Brother Charlie. I don't ever hear him complain. But on Thursday, my wife has my collection. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't have to wait until Sunday when I'm going to give the Lord. I should already know. He's good to me. I don't know about you, but God is good to me. I tell my wife all the time, we are blessed. We get a check every month. We're going to draw a check for the rest of our lives. If I decide to quit working tomorrow, I'm going to draw a check. I'm going to draw 2 checks every month. On the 15th and on the 29th. They're going to send me my Social Security check, which I got a raise, thank God. They sent me some extra money. I ain't know what it was about. My Sister William told me they gave us some extra money. Sister William, thank God they gave us extra money. I wasn't mad with them, Charlie, which they gave me more, and I'm going to get my retirement check for the rest of my life. Look at the position that God has put us in. We are blessed. Brother Charlie and I and a few others don't have to work. We work because we want to, not because we have to. So God has blessed us. So we are blessed. So I can't afford not to give because God has given so much to us. Okay, what I said now. Okay, Paul said the reason I've learned to be content no matter what stage I'm in, whether I'm sleeping outdoors, I don't have no money or no food, he said because I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. Notwithstanding, you do well. You have well done that you did communicate with my affliction. Now what he's saying to the church, he said, even though I've learned to be content, I still appreciate that you ministered to my affliction. There were churches that supported Paul. Even though he didn't demand nothing of the church, there were those who loved the church and they loved what Paul was doing. And when they saw what he was doing, they supported him. Okay? He talked about a sister that did it. Now, ye Philippians, listen to what he's saying to Philippians. Now, ye Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, which I departed from Macedonia, not Macedonian church, okay, no church, watch what it says now, no church communicated with me as concerning giving and receiving. He said, he told Philippians, he said, when I first started, did none of y'all support me. Listen now, what it says now, with me as concerning giving and receiving. But he said, he praised Philippi, because they were the only church that supported him. Now, if you follow me? For even in Thessalonica, ye sent once again unto my necessity. Not because I asked you, but I desire fruit that may abound in your account. But I have all that abound. I am full, having received of the Ethiopian the things which were sent from you, an odor of a sweet-smelling sacrifice, acceptable, well-pleasing to God. But why have you learned to be content, Paul? For my God shall supply all my needs. For my God shall supply all your needs according to the richness in glory by Christ Jesus. Paul learned to be content. And he praised the Philippian church because they were one of the only churches that supported him. Paul said, I didn't ask you for it. You did it out of love. When we give to the Lord, one brother asked me, how much should I give over my 10%? I said, how much do you love the Lord? I can't tell you how much to give. It depends on your love for. We give out of love. We can't beat God giving, can we? So how much did you give over 10%? How much you love the Lord? Has he blessed you? Did you go this year without a doctor bill? Did you go this year without having to go to the doctor, having to spend money, not having a wreck, not losing a loved one? A lady was complaining, I think back here, about her daughter going to the doctor and they giving her a big doctor bill while she was in the hospital because she was very sick. And she came to the preacher complaining about it, and the preacher said, thank God she survived. How would you feel had she not survived the surgery? So instead of complaining about the bill, you ought to thank God that she survived. He taught her, we got to close, he taught her a great lesson there, okay? But let me just finish this up. But we have to learn to be content. That's my point of the lesson. No man is poor who has a godly mother. 2 Timothy 2, 1-5. You read that if you want to spare time. We are not enemies, but friends. Romans 12 and verse 18. So remember that when God is on our side, there is nothing that we can't do. We can learn how to be content, even in the poorhouse, when we got God on our side. If you remember Joseph when they sold him in Egypt and they put him in prison, Joseph wasn't worried about a thing. When they put him in prison for him being wrongly accused of going with the guy's wife, they put him over the prisoners. And while he was in there, he met two guys that had been put in prison, and he told one of them, he said, now, when you go back to the kingdom, I want you to tell Pharaoh about me, that I've been wrongly accused and I've been here. And I think it was a period of a year or two before that guy remembered Joseph. But what happened one night, Pharaoh had a dream, and his dream was not good, and his dream troubled him. And he called all of his physicians there to him to interpret the dream, and they couldn't do it. And the butler, one of the guys, remembered. He said, "Oh, I remember Joseph. It's about a year ago, but I remember him. He could interpret dreams." He said, "I tell you what, King, go bring him here and let him tell you what the dream is about." So he sent for Joseph, and when Joseph came, he told the king what's going to happen. King told Joseph his dream. Joseph said, "You're going to have 7 years of famine. Nothing going to be able to grow in Egypt. And you need to gather all the wheat and grain in Egypt, because for 7 years you're not going to be able to grow that." And the king praised Joseph. And Joseph said, "You need to select a man over this affair." And the king selected Joseph. And that's how Joseph became second in command in Pharaoh's house, because of that dream that he had, even though his brothers had sold him into slavery. And when he met his brothers, he told them, he said, "You meant me harm, but God turned it to my good." Because of what happened to Joseph, Joseph was able to save the entire Israelite nation. But he was wrongfully mistreated. And all this started because of jealousy between him and his 11 brothers. They were jealous of him. And so they said, "Well, he's always running to our daddy, telling our daddy what we do. We're going to fix him. We're going to get rid of him." Actually, they wanted to kill him. But Reuben being wise, said, "We can't do that. He's our brother. I tell you what we do. Let's just put him down in this dungeon and leave him." And Reuben's intention was to come back and get him out. But while Reuben was gone, they took him out and sold him, didn't they? And they killed that goat and put blood on the coat, and they took it to Jacob, and they said, "Jacob, while we was out there in the field, a wild beast came and killed Joseph, and he's dead." And Jacob wept because he loved Joseph. But Joseph had been sold into Egyptian slavery. And when he got there, even though he was in prison, God blessed him. And I remember a young minister was teaching a lesson in Waimama one Sunday, and I was there, special meeting, and he was talking about, he knew I was a prison guard at the time, so he was talking about prison guards and all that stuff. He was very negative. So when he finished, I said, "Let me talk with you." I said, "Have you heard about Joseph?" I said, "Are you aware that Joseph was a prison guard?" No. I said, "Joseph was a prison guard." I said, "But Joseph, even though he was a prison guard, was able to save the prisoners and the nation that made him one." I taught him a great lesson there. He couldn't do it but look at me, because I knew the lesson. But he was putting down prison guard being negative, but I showed him a lesson. Joseph was a prison guard. He was in charge of all the prisoners. But God was on his side. And because of that, not only did Joseph save the prisoners, but he saved the nation that made him a